I want to talk about something I call what if beekeeping. And let me give you an example. Let's say you walk in your house one day and there's 2 inches of water everywhere. You hear water gushing. What's the first thing you do? Do you call a plumber? Do you start sweeping the water? The reality is, you go and turn off the mains and then figure out what's going on and start cleanup. You don't start cleanup while the mess is getting worse and worse. And let me explain a little more about what I mean by what if beekeeping. What if you're out there working your hives and the girls just start going crazy? What if the hive falls over? What if somebody comes walking up unsuited and the girls start going after them? There are a lot of situations that, what if they happen? What are you going to do? You can't plan for everyone in the world, but you can plan for some of the basics. Think about it in advance, come up with a strategy of sorts, and then when something does happen, because it's not a question of if, but rather a question of when something's going to happen, you'll at least have the first step. Now, the first thing I tell everyone is never ever panic. The moment you panic is the moment you stop thinking, and that's the moment you just failed. You lost everything when you panic. Keep your head up together, keep your thoughts together, be an adult. Come up with a plan, execute the plan. Now, think about other things you do where this is basically preparation. What kind of things do you prepare for? When you go to the bank, you want a mortgage, they're going to borrow you some money. They make you sign all these papers. The papers aren't there because everything's going to go right. If you pay the mortgage every month for 30 years, then you own the house and the papers didn't mean anything. When you don't pay, when something happens to the house, you pass away, whatever might happen, that's what those papers are for. They're there to assure when their problems come up, and what do you do about this? Okay, so let me give you an example. A friend of mine, she's got a number of fairly gentle hives, and she just wears the top half of the suit. Sometimes gloves, sometimes not. One day she goes out there, and one of her hives, she takes the cover off, and I'm not sure what happened. She doesn't know exactly what happened, but the bees just started pouring out of the entrance. They're starting to cover her. They're actually blocking some of her vision. They're that aggressive that day. What do you do? In her scenario, basically, she kind of left, and they followed her for a while, but she finally got them off of her. Came back an hour or so later, they were just as bad. She hadn't closed the hive. Goes off, comes back an hour or so later, it's evening, sunset. They've gone back in, she's able to close the hive, and several days later, the hive was back to normal. But even with the gentlest of hives, things like this can happen. So let me kind of give you some overlying strategies on what to do. Step one is always safety. People, pets, anything else living, including the bees, that you want to watch out for. You cannot save a hive if someone's life is in jeopardy. There are just some things that are absolutely not worth doing. Understand where the bees are, where people are, have sufficient barriers and warnings. If I'm doing a cutout, I try to keep people away from that area because, and I've had people try and walk up, even with warning signs. They just don't get it. So, some different thoughts on this. What do you do if, let's say the scenario I gave with my friend, you go up, you open the hive, the girls are all angry. They were just starting to pour out. This is exactly the plumbing scenario problem. If you've got 500 bees on you, is it going to get any better when there's 5,000? Of course not. First thing I would have done in that scenario, close the entrance. And I don't care if you have to reach down and get some grass and shove it in there, or if you've got a screen, or if you've got a cork, or whatever your hive configuration is, block their entrance. If 500 are out, and there's 20,000 inside that are mad, that's okay. As long as they've got a little bit of airflow, let them sit in there, stew a little bit. They'll chill out after a while. Stop, and another important thing is close the hive. Not just the entrance, but if the top of the hive is open, inner cover, telescoping cover, top bar design, whatever it is, put the hive back together. If they are getting light down inside, that's going to keep things stirred up because they like a nice dark hive area. So the first thing is stop it from getting worse. And sometimes you have to understand, why are they getting angry? It could have been a hive takeover. It could be they're getting raided by a skunk or something at night. It could be there's a mouse in there. They could be low on stores. They could have varroa or even some other health-related issues. There's a number of things that can cause an upset colony. Other things that can happen, one that happened to me is a hive literally fell over. The stand it was on collapsed, and it was 4 boxes. I can tell you, when the hive falls over and the boxes come apart, the bees are not happy. What do? Well, got to get it back up, get it together. Not really a whole lot you can do, unless obviously preventative is always a wonderful thing. But when you're in a situation where it's fallen over, let's say you've got top bars and a leg breaks off, something hits the hive, whether it's acorns falling or whatever it might be, try and understand where the cause was. And you don't have to do that immediately, but afterwards, sometimes it helps understand what happened so that you can do your best to prevent it from happening again. But my point really is, we love talking about all the positives of beekeeping, whether you want to talk about splitting hives and the products of the hive and the pollination and all those wonderful things. But sometimes you've got to take the good with the bad, and things that are bad happen with your hive. If you think about your location, your hives, your skill level, what could happen, and keep in mind, I've only got gentle bees, someone might say. My friend only had gentle bees, and this still happened. By the way, a good hint. When the bees are all over you, sometimes walking past trees, I'll walk past my RV, and imagine as I'm walking up against the wall of the RV, half the bees that were following me just hit a wall. That'll kind of cut down the number of bees on you. One of the best and simplest things is have a vehicle with some nice dark tinting. Walk away, get in the car, start the AC, put it on max, crack your windows open. As soon as they're in that darker vehicle, they're done with you, they're exiting, and they're going to rally the troops, go back home. They're not going to be... So you don't have to go back into your house and have 50 bees come back with you, possibly stinging family members. Just getting in the vehicle, and then they'll exit the vehicle with time. That's one hint about part of a strategy. But my bottom line is, think about some of the what-ifs, trying to have some kind of strategies. If you can, practice some of these things in advance so that you have a little bit of practice with it. And with this, you'll be a more confident beekeeper, you'll be a safer beekeeper, and you'll be prepared for when things go wrong. I hope this helps.